do your thing. We've got you covered.
Hey, is the power off on this?
I don't know. Just take it off.
Safety violation, unsafe work conditions.
In the construction trades unions, safety is our highest priority, and we train you to recognize and speak out on unsafe working conditions so that everyone arrives and goes home safely. Learn about careers in construction at georgiaconstructioncareers.com.
Good afternoon and welcome to the 301st episode of the Alfa Insurance Georgia Prep Sports Drive for the GHSA State Title. Today we're going to look at the quarterfinal matchups, recap the Sweet 16 action, and then look at our upcoming game, the Walton at Carrollton rematch in the quarterfinals. It's a great game on paper, and the Maxwell projections just came out, and that is the best game this week according to the computer ratings and the margin of victory. So we'll get into all the predictions, and then I'll talk about our top play of the week and recap Rome's big win over Hughes. So let's start with the Maxwell ratings real quick. So in that game, looks like Carrollton's favored to win by 1 point. Got it pulled up right here. It has a 97.24 rating. It was the closest matchup. So they run it through a computer simulation based off historical records, points per game this season, and then head-to-head recent matchups. So obviously last year, Carrollton's big win over Walton factors into that. But they have Carrollton as a 51.7% favorite. It is at Carrollton, obviously, and then, as I mentioned, a 30-29 prediction. I put a poll out last night that's going to end right at kickoff, and the last time I checked, it was 50-50. People are very split on this one, and you can tell why. You got Juju Lewis for Carrollton. He's only lost 2 games as a starter, the season opener to Hughes that came down to the wire, and then last year's state championship game. He's been phenomenal this season, and he's starting to heat up in the playoffs and really just putting up some monster numbers. In the first round, I think he had 7 touchdown passes. He's averaging about 400 yards in the playoffs. And then you have a Walton offense that's been just as dominant, putting up probably the most points per game out of any classification, and it's just the plethora of weapons. So with Carrollton, it's hard to discount the success of Juju, their mismatches at receiver. Their defense has been outstanding, but then people that are siding towards Walton, they're factoring in Walton being motivated to avenge last year's defeat, and also just how much better they've gotten on both sides of the ball with this year's playmakers. I think another factor in this matchup, and it's no disrespect to Kamari Farmer, their sophomore running back that's had an all-state level season, it's Bryce Hicks. He was the hero last year in that matchup on both sides of the ball. This was right on the heels of a 28 carry performance he had on the road at Colquitt County. Then Walton comes to town. He hit a big interception right before the half. That's something Jeremy Heklinski doesn't do a lot. He is a gunslinger, but he doesn't turn it over. If you watch Walton play, he is willing to just throw it out of bounds, live to fight another down, and be aggressive on the next play. He doesn't take those chances, and his receivers do a great job of getting open. So that was just preparation and a great read by Bryce Hicks that kind of turned the momentum in Carrollton's favor, and they ended up running away with that victory. But I put that play as the play of the game. And without Bryce Hicks, someone else is going to have to step up on that defensive side of the ball and get a turnover. So let's look at some of these other matchups with the predictions. So the second highest rated matchup And the third one's pretty good too, but Thomas County Central against Rome. I think that is such an intriguing matchup. Thomas County Central has just been so dominant this season with complementary football. They're so good defensively that they can rely on it. They can be patient offensively. They can work the field position in their favor. And I haven't seen any team putting up anything north of double-digit points on them. They held Jonesboro to just 6 points this last week, and that was a late touchdown. Had them shut out the entire game. And then Rome's defense, you got to give them a lot of credit too. We saw how they were able to shut down Hughes' offense this last week. So I think that's going to be a very great defensive game, hard hitting, and points will definitely be a premium in that one. And then I got to think maybe Rome has an advantage in team speed with guys like DK Daniel, but Thomas County Central definitely has some weapons as well. So that's the second highest rated matchup. The third is going to be Buford and Grayson, and that is a lot closer than people are expecting. A 24-21 prediction in favor of Buford, so just a 3-point favorite. They're going to be on the road at Grayson, and I think with Grayson, they come off a great win over North Paulding, and J.D. Davis, their quarterback, put up the best numbers against that experienced North Paulding defense that any quarterback has all season long. I think he was 21 of 24 passing. That is extremely efficient and a great sign heading into this matchup. If he is anywhere close to that efficient throwing the football against Buford, I think Grayson has a great opportunity there. And then the other big storyline that I'm sure we'll get updates on was the news about Edric Houston. I've seen people speculating maybe it wasn't him, maybe it was, but the report obviously came out that he collapsed after the game during a team celebration. So I think Edric Houston's the best defensive lineman in the country. I think he's a wrecking force, and I hope all the best for him, but that is definitely a big factor that could benefit Grayson. All right, Colquitt County is a 13-point favorite over Milton, 34-21. Thought that was intriguing. And then Douglas County and Lee County. Douglas County is in the quarterfinals for the first time since 1988. They're undefeated. They got a big matchup against Lee County, and they're favored 28-24. That would be huge for the Tigers. All right, Woodward Academy in Gainesville. This, I believe, is one of two matchups that are completely even in the projections. It's a 21-21 output by the computer, and it's going to be really intriguing. Woodward Academy's defense has been lights out this season. That's definitely the strength of their team, and I don't know. I just think it's going to come down to stopping Gavin Hall. He's been an absolute MVP this season. He had a one-handed touchdown to get Gainesville going against Blessed Trinity this week, and then had a monster second half. Ended up with 4 touchdowns in that win. So it's going to be Gavin Hall, that Gainesville offense trying to get points against one of the most talented defenses left in the playoff. All right, Mill Creek and Camden County. Mill Creek is a very heavy favorite, 30-14 prediction, and it just goes to show, no disrespect to Camden County, but Mill Creek's win over Buford, they could be playing Grayson this week if they weren't able to get that region title. I think this is a little more favorable, and you can tell just by the computer model, a 16-point favorite. Mill Creek just shut out Peachtree Ridge, and they look phenomenal. All right, this is going to be a really interesting matchup. Marist and Roswell. Marist is a 3-point favorite. I think there's a huge contrast of styles in this game. Marist with its run-oriented offense, lockdown defense, and then Just the athleticism of KJ Smith and that Roswell offense, Nakai Davenport, Saquon Smith, and company. So that'll be a great matchup. And then Benedictine and North Oconee. Benedictine is a touchdown favorite, 28-21. I'm putting them on upset alert. I think North Oconee is as good a team as anyone left. They're complete. They're solid at every position. They've got great depth, great participation numbers. And then if you look at them, every single season, they take that next step. Made the quarterfinals for the first time. Then last year, they make the semifinals for the first time. And I think just this 12-0 team, they had the goal to make it to the finals this year. They're going to be playing Benedictine. They avenged last year's loss to Cedartown with a big win last Friday. I think North Oconee has a great opportunity in that matchup. All right, Spalding is a big favorite over Stockbridge. That's the result of Stockbridge struggling this last week to pull out a 28-24 victory over Westminster. And Spalding is a 72.8% favorite. All right, Cedar Grove, a 27-21 favorite over Mary Persons. Should be an interesting matchup. Mary Persons already beat Prince Avenue Christian, so we know they are a talented, well-coached football team, but they will have their hands full in that one. They've played a gauntlet of a schedule. And then Creekside against Warner Robins. Warner Robins beat Ware County last week. It was one of 3 games where a defending champ went down. We also saw it with our game with Rome beating Hughes, and we saw Thompson fall to Toombs County, and so Creekside's going to be a 7-point favorite. But let's talk a little bit about Rome's win over Hughes. Anyone that watched that game, the thing that obviously stands out, Hughes played terrible in the first quarter. That's just objectively true. They were down 28-0. So how did it happen? Well, Rome came out the second play of the game. Reese Fountain hit DK Daniel. He beat 2 guys. It was a beautiful thrown ball, and really the only deep shot we saw either team take all game long. And so I thought, okay, Rome has an opportunity to kind of have a knockout punch just with such a big lead, but they never really went back to it. They stayed steady and were able to just hold on to the win. And so they come out, big touchdown early. Hughes gets the ball back. The first couple passing plays, they just were not in rhythm at all. They were trying to get Justice Savage going. He had some good positive runs, but then the second they tried to balance out the offense, the timing was off. The receivers weren't coming back to the football. They didn't really get going into the second quarter, so Hughes lines up to punt. The first snap is a high one. Their punter, who's also their tight end, Xavier, had to jump up. If he wasn't 6'6", or I think he's 6'5.5", that first snap would have gone way over his head. And so there was a penalty on the play. I think it was something involving the snapper did something illegal afterwards. And so Rome said, because it got a favorable bounce, they said, okay, we'll let him kick it again. Well, that snap went 10 feet over Xavier's head on the next one. Just a busted play. Rome downs it close to the end zone, and then they punch it in the next play. So 3 plays, and Rome is already up 14-0. They ended up having another touchdown later in the quarter to go up 21-0. And then Hughes had another miscue on special teams where, you got to think, if you're worried about this snap going 10 feet over your head, you got a lot of things going through your mind, and punter's not even your natural position, and Rome's bringing the heat, and so they had a punt basically get shanked into their own player. Rome took advantage of it, marched in 28-0. Well, I was on the sideline because I had to talk to Coach Boone after the first quarter, and I knew things were rough. I mean, the level of frustration on the Hughes sideline is almost like disbelief, just like, hey, we've got to get something positive going. That was probably the worst quarter of football I've seen any team play, and it was just self-inflicted mistakes. And so Prentice Nolan, he's a guy that has poise, leadership, but he got after it with his teammates. He held a meeting on the sidelines, pointed to the scoreboard, looked his players in the eyes, said, come on, guys, we got to get this thing going. And Hughes won that second quarter. They played really well. They got on the board. It's 28-7. Rome did not score any points in the second quarter, and then really late into the third quarter. So the defense was making it difficult. And then Hughes had a chance to cut it to 28-14 right before the half. Aaron Nolan found his receiver. They were out of timeouts, and they downed him pretty much at the pylon. And then it's one of those situations where the buzzer's going to go. We've seen it happen before, but there was probably 1 or 2 seconds left on the clock, but there's really no way to stop it that quickly unless you know the situation and are just on it. And so basically what could have been a touchdown ends up just coming up a yard short. They don't get another chance, and despite getting the ball back to start the second half, that was a big momentum killer for them, because they needed just one thing to go their way, and that was yet another missed opportunity. And then in the second half, it was just turnovers. Hughes had some penalties, but really the timing on the receivers was just off, and they were having to rely too much on the screen game. And then Rome's secondary was able to capitalize on that, jump some passes. And Justice Savage, a great running back this season, one of the best in the state, he was just getting swarmed because Rome does such a good job at loading the box, having different looks, and credit to their defensive linemen and linebackers. And then in that Rome secondary, Joe Wilkinson, I wish we had stats of this game because he probably had, in terms of total tackles, it had to have been like 18 or 20. He was in on every single play, and then no one really wanted to go over the middle of the field because he will put a forearm or a shoulder right into you. And so he had some of the biggest hits I've seen. I've said he's the most physical player I've seen all season long. And then he had a big hit we'll show in a bit right after Rome's first touchdown. They kicked it off, and he absolutely lit up the Hughes return man, who did not see him coming. So he was flying around. The defense looked great. They ended up allowing a late touchdown. I think it was on a 3rd and long or 4th down. Xavier, the guy that had some of the miscues punting, he's only a sophomore. He made one of the most difficult catches I've seen, got absolutely lit up, somehow held on to the football and gave them that late touchdown. But other than that, I just think Hughes made too many mistakes. Rome played too well defensively, and then Reese Fountain had probably his best game. I know he's had other big performances in terms of stats, but the way he just did not make mistakes, was steady, had great runs, and was just getting all his guys involved. He looked like a 4-year starter, and he was our MVP in the game. So credit to Reese Fountain. And we'll show that clip in a bit, just how he got them going. Let's look at some other recaps that I had printed out in depth. So let's go to the Walton game real quick. All right, so in that one, North Gwinnett was able to cut it to 2 points. Walton never trailed, but I think it was, 21-19 at one point. And then from there, Walton made the adjustments and then shut down North Gwinnett the rest of the game. And offensively, once they got hot, it was game over. So Jeremy Hecklinski threw for 295 yards and 4 touchdowns as Walton dominated the second half on the way to a 48-19 win over North Gwinnett. Heklinski also eclipsed 9,000 career passing yards for Walton, which will head to Carrollton next week for a rematch of last year's quarterfinal loss. It will also be a battle between future Power 5 quarterbacks in Heklinski, the Wake Forest commit, and Juju Lewis, USC, Southern Cal. A year ago, Walton saw its season end with a 52-27 loss at Grisham Stadium. Coach Bruner said after the game, "We're looking forward to it. We are excited to go back there and see if we can change our fate this year." While Friday's score might indicate that Walton controlled the game, North Gwinnett put the pressure on the Raiders late in the first half and the opening minutes of the second by scoring 16 unanswered points. Prior to North Gwinnett's rally, Walton had a 21-3 lead when the Bulldogs quarterback Ryan Hall connected with Eric Ronning. He had both of their touchdown catches for an 86-yard catch and run on the third play of the second half to cut Walton's lead to 2. The Raiders answered back with 4 unanswered touchdown drives to put the game out of reach. The first of those came when Heklinski hit Cameron Lloyd for a 55-yard touchdown to extend the lead. He's been such a key piece this season. He's so fast, and he is electric. After Christian Farrell picked off a Hall pass in the end zone to put Walton's offense back on the field, Heklinski connected with Lloyd again, this time for a 53-yard strike. He has been unguardable. All right, the Raiders increased their lead to 41-19 on a 10-yard touchdown run by Makari Bodiford after Hayden Halpus recovered a fumble. Walton struck again with a 21-yard touchdown pass from Heklinski to Hunter Teal to break the game open. We regrouped at halftime, came out and played well in the second half, Bruner said. We got a resilient group of kids who want to keep fighting for 4 quarters. That's what you have to have this time of year. I'm proud of them. The Raiders accumulated 569 yards of offense and excelled at balancing the run and pass. So Makari Bodiford, we've talked about his health. The Memphis commit, he's been taking limited carries this season. He's already committed to Memphis. Had a ridiculously dominant junior year, and I think the win in the first round was the first time since the Grayson game in the opener that he had more than 10 carries. He had, I think, 20 carries against Buford last year. So they're definitely going to rely on him in these big playoff matchups. And then Austin Williams, who's really provided valuable carries all season long to allow Bodiford's touches to be limited and managed. And he had 131 yards on 11 carries, broke loose for a 56-yard touchdown run that put Walton up 14-3. And then Bodiford had 18 carries for 104 yards and had 2 touchdowns. You're going to see Austin Williams and Bodiford sharing the role once again this week. And then Cam Lloyd, the big threat. You got Hunter Teal, the reliable, crafty tight end that always comes up with big catches. And then Wyatt Sonderman is back from his broken hand that he suffered in the North Paulding game. He had 62 yards receiving on 2 catches and scored Walton's first touchdown of the game on a 13-yard catch. So they are healthy, and things are definitely looking good heading into this matchup. I'm going to do my best this week to not completely be a homer for Walton, but obviously I've said all season long that's my team. I think this is going to be the year, but really it's going to be a great matchup. I want to get into one more big performance before we show the top play, and that is Jefferson's 42-21 win over Hiram. I think with Hiram, their offense has been so good this season. Defensively, though, they've been in a lot of shootouts, and they were up early in this one, and Sammy Brown took over. He's the best player on the field, and he's just a rare combination of strength and speed, and he did it all. So Jefferson coach Travis Nolan told Sammy Brown on Wednesday, that was when he was on our show last week, that he needed to eat his spinach before Friday's showdown with 7th-ranked Hiram. Brown ate a truckload of it. The senior Clemson commit destroyed, and these aren't my words, this is just objective fact, destroyed Hiram, rushing for 355 yards and 4 touchdowns to lead Jefferson to a 42-21 win over the Hornets in the second round of the Class 5A playoffs Friday night at home. And so he had touchdown runs of 80, 42, 48, and 69. I think he also passed for a touchdown, a 9-yard touchdown pass to Zay Minish. So, I mean, Sammy Brown, we have the Georgia High School Football Hall of Fame. He's going in the first year. I mean, one of the most exceptional high school careers we've ever seen. And he makes 5A really interesting because he's not just doing it on offense, rushing for 355 yards. He's out there at linebacker too. So, I mean, if he can lead Jefferson to a state title this year, it would just be unbelievable. He already won Max Prep's Georgia Athlete of the Year last season, and he's just a special talent. He opened the game with an 80-yard touchdown run in the first quarter, and that was after Hiram missed a 42-yard field goal. Brown scampered around the right side and took off like a fighter jet. He's a state champion in track as well, so strength, speed, he's got it all. But let's go to our play real quick, our play of the week. So the first one is going to be how Rome came out on that first drive. The beautiful touchdown pass from Reese Fountain to D.K. Daniel, probably the fastest guy on Rome's team, but just a perfectly thrown ball, and you see just how aggressive Rome was in that first quarter.
Second, about 8 after the penalty. Fountain will throw again. He's going to throw deep down the sideline, and it's caught over the shoulder by D.K. Daniel for a touchdown. 56 yards on the strike, and Rome at home is on the board first.
And yes, they definitely caught Hughes off guard on that play. A great route, great pass, and great play call. Reese credited just how well he thought the OC did.
It's second, about 8 after the penalty. Fountain will throw again. He's going to throw deep down the sideline, and it's caught over the shoulder by D.K. Daniel for a touchdown. 56 yards on the strike, and Rome at home.
Yep, so you can't throw it better than that. Hit him right in stride. Beautifully placed, and I think after that, they're mentioning just the fact that Reese and DK have been playing together since, Pop Warner. So you just see the connection with those two right there and why Rome's offense has been so successful. But then on the next play, this is the ensuing kickoff. I think this was that 1-2 punch that really just electrified the Rome sidelines and kind of hit Hughes in the mouth. Like, it gave Rome the confidence that they could match them physically, and Joe was that player all game. I still need to find someone that has stats. I'll reach out if I have to. I'll watch it myself, but he must have had 18 to 20 tackles. This was his first one. Just check out this special teams play and how did Hughes even hold on to this play, but just the speed he showed down on this kickoff, it's next level.
Aware of that. A lot of the folks around the Rome program will also point this out.
So the ball's going to take a bounce, and then before Hughes is able to jump up and catch it, he's already there.
Starters really only played first half in like 10 of the 11 games this year. And you see that ball bounces alive, football, and a big hit. They'll tell you that the Rome
so that's
starters
after
really
the quick strike touchdown. I mean, that's how you open a football game.
This year. And you see that ball bounces alive, football, and a big hit. Credit the Langston Hughes return man for being able to hold on to that after going up high to receive that and getting the big hit.
So I told my buddy Brendan Langley, who was at the game, I was like, you got to watch out for Joe Wilkinson. He's a physical guy, and he was actually standing right there on the sideline for that. And he came over to me right after that play, and he goes, that guy has bad intentions. I'm like, I tried to tell you, like, he wants to bring the hammer. I saw him on the sideline after, and I was like, good game, Joe. And he's like, I try my best. So he's just a baller. He loves being out there, brings the physicality, and I just thought that play, I mean, that's how you come out and try to intimidate the opposing team and let them know that you guys are coming to avenge last year's lopsided defeat to them. So I thought that combo right there, that is my play of the week, brought to you by GeorgiaConstructionCareers.com. But let's go ahead. We'll take a quick break. Thank our sponsors. We'll be back on the other side.
What you doing?
Hey, just finishing this claim to get Dave back on the road.
Nice. I wonder what Dave's doing.
You do your thing. We've got you covered.
Hey, does it matter if this leaks?
It don't matter to me. Can't see it from my house.
Illegal use of hands and proper training.
GeorgiaConstructionCareers.com has 14 different highly skilled trades with tuition-free training in our certified apprenticeship programs to train you the right way. Find your career at GeorgiaConstructionCareers.com.
All right, welcome back. And I also want to give a shout out to Jaden Harmon. He was our defensive player of the game, a linebacker for Rome. He had a huge interception in that third quarter that just helped kind of kill any momentum Hughes had. So when your linebackers are stopping Justice Savage and also getting out in the flats and hauling in interceptions, that is a great sign and just indicative of how well that Rome defense played and how prepared they were. All right, so let's look at another matchup. And this is a team that I have not looked too much into this year because they haven't been in the top 10, but they've really impressed me late, and that's Camden County. They're going to be going up against Mill Creek next, but they had a big 26-0 win over McEachern last Friday. I thought McEachern was one of the hottest teams coming in, but the thing that hurt McEachern, as Coach Reed said, was the turnovers. Because you can't turn the ball over in the playoffs and expect to win. Everything is magnified. And so, are you ready for this? McEachern had turnovers on its first 3 possessions of the game. So just a tough way when your team that's really hot, playing with a lot of momentum. They started the season 0-4. They had won 7 straight games and then just came out, shot themselves in the foot. And so McEachern turned the ball over on its first 3 possessions of the game, with Camden County scoring off the last 2 to take control and advance to a quarterfinal matchup with defending state champion Mill Creek. The Indians also saw a couple scoring opportunities in the second half, which they drove the ball deep into Camden County territory, fall short as the Wildcats stopped them at the goal line both times. So it's a tough outing. I think McEachern, the fact that they were able to rebound from that slow start, advance to the Sweet 16. There's a lot to grow from heading into Coach Reed's second season. But credit to Camden County's defense, producing the turnovers and then having the big goal line stands. They're certainly going to have to do that this week against Mill Creek. It appeared as if McEachern would get on the scoreboard first when it drove all the way down to the Camden 30-yard line. However, the Indians' drive ended abruptly when Jaden Kinney's pass was intercepted, and Camden County took possession with 9:51 remaining in the first quarter. After forcing Camden to punt, McEachern drove the ball down to midfield, but Cooper Thornhill recovered a Kinney fumble for the Wildcats, who took over at the Indians 46 with 4 minutes left in the first quarter. Camden then went on a 10-play, 46-yard drive that concluded with an 11-yard touchdown run by Daly with 10:35 to go in the half, putting the Wildcats up 6-0. Once again, McEachern took the ball to midfield, advancing to the 49. The drive ended the same way it did on their first possession, as Riddle intercepted a Kinney pass. And the Wildcats took over at their own 22 midway through the first quarter, or first half. I think that's a typo. Camden County scored once again on a lengthy drive with Daly's 9-yard touchdown run, concluding a 10-play, 78-yard drive, and increasing the Wildcats' advantage to 13-0 with a minute 51 left in the first half. So that's the obvious story of how Camden won that game. Featuring the turnovers and then the inability to execute in the red zone. I think Mill Creek will be a much tougher opponent, but that's certainly something to watch to see if Mill Creek's able to protect the ball better. All right, so I'm going to look at Class 4A and their Elite 8 matchups. So let me see if I have this. All right, so basically the top-ranked teams in 4A have just continued to advance. You look at the Elite 8, you have 7 region champs, and then the only non-top seed is Perry, and they eked out a 7-3 victory over Bainbridge, giving them their first loss within the classification. The good news for Perry, Coultergen is back. I believe I saw that in the recap. So he got hurt in I think probably 4 weeks ago, and they've had to really change their offense, run the ball more with Ahmad Gordon, bring in their backup quarterback. But if he's healthy, I think Perry's very dangerous. And let's see. Yeah, let's just go over Friday's results. So Bainbridge was eliminated 7-3 by Perry. Ahmad Gordon's 47-yard touchdown run with 3 minutes left in the second quarter gave the visiting Panthers their 7-3 lead. It proved to be the game's only touchdown and also ended up being the final points in what was a defensive struggle from start to finish. Bainbridge opened the scoring with a 25-yard field goal by Nicholas Tyree in the first quarter, but the offense failed to produce anything else the rest of the night. A clutch pass from Coultergen, that's the quarterback that went out. He's a transfer from Peach County, and a lot of people consider him the most talented quarterback in the state that's yet to get an offer. Maybe that's changed recently, but he's got great size, a really special athlete. All right, so he had a big pass to Corey Pettigrew, and that first down allowed them to run out the clock at the end of the game. All right, so then that's Region 1, Bainbridge, that's the champion that went down. Region 2, that's where Perry's from. Spalding's the region champ. They advanced. They improved to 12-0, a 20-0 win over Troop. Troop had a tough year, dealt with injuries with Tateo Todd, their quarterback, and then offensively they just haven't been able to put up many points. They had I think a 14-10 win over Cairo last round, where Cairo just threw 2 interceptions in the red zone, a game they could have won, and then Spalding was just way too much, and so they shut them out. Following a scoreless first quarter, host Spalding needed a jolt and got it in the form of a 55-yard punt return for a touchdown by Ronald Moore en route to a shutout victory. The Jags led 14-0 at half following a 15-yard touchdown run by Robert Henderson before Henderson hauled in a 58-yard strike from Kurt Clark in the third quarter. Spalding's dominant defensive effort featured a fumble recovery by Cedric Evans. Kurt Clark's a true dual-threat quarterback. He's having a great season, and that is why Spalding is still in the playoffs. All right, number 1 seed Benedictine out of Region 3. They cruised to a 31-7 win over LaGrange. They dominated that game. LaGrange was going into that pretty hot, but they just shut them down. The Cadets built a 24-7 advantage at the half and led the final 31-7 margin with 8 minutes left in the third quarter. They got 2 touchdowns by Bryce Baker, one on a 65-yard pass from Luke Kromenhoek. Niger Samuel added a 42-yard touchdown run. Connor Ferguson tacked on a 40-yard field goal, and Bubba Frazier returned an interception 75 yards to the end zone. Benedictine doing what it does best and playing outstanding in all 3 phases. So Benedictine will play Region 8 champion North Oconee. They had a 35-9 win over Cedartown. It was a rematch of last year's semis. They jumped out to a 14-0 lead in the second quarter behind touchdown runs from Max Wilson, Tate Titshaw, and they never looked back. Max Wilson's their quarterback. He has developed his game physically. He's a multi-year starter. I think he has a chance to duel with Luke Kromenhoek this week. All right, so Cedartown pulled within 14-9 on a 55-yard scoring strike from Drew Ledbetter to DeMarcus Gardner, but North Oconee padded its lead when Brooks Thompson returned a fumble 20 yards for a touchdown. Titshaw and Trey Linhart put the game away in the fourth with touchdown runs. So really solid win. Let's look at Region 4. That's Stars Mill. That's their champion. And they won a shootout with New Hampstead 45-27. Stars Mill has a great defense. They were going up against one of the better passing attacks. I think New Hampstead's defense was a little vulnerable, but Stars Mill just outclassed them both sides of the ball. They erased an early deficit of 7-0. They also trailed 14-7 and 20-14 before pulling away, getting that 45-27 victory. They led 24-20 at the half and then 45-20 going into the fourth. And at one point, they scored 31 straight points in the victory. Logan Inagua ran for 2 touchdowns and threw a 65-yard touchdown to Anderson Cardoza. So that was Stars Mill's best offensive game. But I do think in terms of the Elite 8, New Hampstead probably didn't have the best defense, but they were one of the better teams statistically. All right, Stockbridge, we mentioned they had a really tight game against Westminster. They won that one 28-24 to improve to 10-2 and win their 10th straight game after dropping their first 2. Jaden Scott scored on a 3-yard run with 55 seconds remaining to give Stockbridge a come-from-behind win over the Wildcats. Westminster took a 24-21 lead on a 30-yard halfback pass from Fane Barton to Armstrong Jones midway through the fourth quarter and got the ball back on an interception with less than 2 minutes remaining, and then engineered a game-winning and season-saving drive. Scott also scored on a 75-yard scamper in the second quarter, while Kobe Tompkins threw touchdown passes to Ryan Johnson and Jaden Howard for Stockbridge. All right, Region 6. Their champion is Stevenson. They advanced with a 35-7 win over Luella. Stevenson surged to a 21-0 lead in the first quarter on the way to a convincing home win. Quarterback Marte Barton and running back Tyler Bursey connected on each of the Jaguars' first 2 touchdowns, one from 30 yards and the other from 25. Colin Seals added a 44-yard interception return for a touchdown midway through the second. Stevenson answered Luella's lone touchdown when Trent Fields Jr. returned the ensuing kickoff for a score. Andrew Perry eventually iced the game all by himself in the fourth quarter, intercepting a Lions pass and then rushing it in for the score. So you're going to have Stevenson hosting Perry. We mentioned Stockbridge. They're going to be at Spalding, North Oconee at Benedictine, and then Stars Mill at Central Carroll. Central Carroll's the Region 7 champ. They are undefeated at 12-0, and they had a very solid 38-10 win over Lovett. They had, I guess, barn burners is the correct term, against Heritage Catoosa in the first round, where they had to hang on to that victory. So that was their region opener. Who did they play last round? Hateville Charter. A very tough matchup, but they locked them down this week. 38-10. Jonas Walton has had a tremendous season for them. He rushed for 3 touchdowns as Central Carroll pulled away from Lovett. It was 0-0 after the first quarter before Central Carroll got rolling, powering their way to leads of 14-3 at halftime, and then 28-3 heading into the fourth. They also got a touchdown run by Ty Brewer and a scoring strike from Will Morris to Jalen White. Lovett's lone touchdown came on a 9-yard touchdown run. So interesting. Central Carroll just having a great day running the football. I know they've been a good passing team as well, but Jonas Walton, I'm sure he is going to be listed in the top performers this last week. All right, so let's look at a couple other trends. We mentioned the big one, which was 3 defending champs getting knocked out this last round. So now we have half of them remaining. Sandy Creek lost in the first round, and then we saw Hughes go down, Thompson and Warner Robins beat Ware County, so Ware County went down. And that was a close game, man. Second close game in a row for Warner Robins. It was a 23-21, and that was Alberto Medina kicking a 42-yard field goal at the buzzer. Does not get much better than that, and that is certainly a growing rivalry. I know Warner Robins has a rivalry with Northside, and that one's pretty historic, but Ware County and Warner Robins, that's certainly a heated matchup each year. Toombs County, they had their win over Thompson, 41-30. That puts Toombs County in the finals the quarterfinals for the first time since 2008. There's some other history made. So the teams that advanced to the quarterfinals for the first time ever, you have Bryan County and Lumpkin County. Cass advanced with their win over Mays, 17-7. Their first quarterfinals since 1983. Douglas County, their first since 1988. And then 2 more from the 90s, Telford County, 93, Columbia, 97. Thought this was interesting. Camden County hadn't been to the quarterfinals since 2012. So quite a long time. And then Elbert County, they're back for the first time since 2015. Commerce is back for the first time since 2020, and then there are a bunch of teams returning to the quarterfinals for the second straight year or multiple years, including defending state champs Benedictine, Bowden. And at this point, the computer model is 30-29. Carrollton is favored by 1 point, 51%. All right, so this is a rematch of the 2022 quarterfinal that Carrollton won 52-27. Juju Lewis passed for 333 yards and 4 touchdowns in that game. Caleb Odom had 120 yards receiving. Both are back. Lewis was 14-25 passing for 209 yards and 4 touchdowns in a 45-28 win over Valdosta. I think that was a televised matchup, and all the comments I saw after the first half were just praising how solid that Valdosta defense looked. But their offense good in the second half, better and better. He can come out strong, but second half Juju, I think that's just a different animal. All right, so he had 4 touchdowns in that one, all of which came in the first 8 minutes of the second half. So he just caught fire. Kamari Farmer, that's their sophomore running back that has played such a huge role, coming in thinking he's going to be behind Bryce Hicks. Bryce Hicks goes down in the season opener, and then he has been running at an all-state level. He had 160 yards, so he has 1,260 on the season. We saw his breakout performance against Rome, and that was really impressive. We had 28 carries for 196 yards. All right, Carrollton has won, which, I mean, seeing how hard it was for Hughes to run the ball on Rome, I think that just says how talented Kamari Farmer is and this Carrollton offense. Carrollton has won 11 straight games since its loss to Hughes to reach the quarterfinals for the 8th straight season. The first 6 in lower classifications. All right, so Walton, ranked number 2, is 12-0 for the second time in history, and was first since the 2011 team that reached the state final. That was the year they matched up with Grayson. That was the only time they had ever played Grayson prior to this season, and that was Walton's huge win over the Rams in the Corky Kell Dave Hunter Classic to open their season. Walton beat North Gwinnett 48-19 in the second round. We mentioned how well they played in the second half. It's a really interesting stat. So Walton has scored at least 5 touchdowns in every single game this season. Coach Bruner preaches that 1-0 mentality, and it definitely shows. They have been outstanding every single week, and they've won in different ways. They jump out to the big lead against Grayson. Against North Cobb, they're down early and then end up turning a massive deficit into a blowout victory. So their offense really has hit a rhythm in every game this season, and that's because they have the money man at quarterback. As Coach Brumner says with Jeremy Hecklinski, you think about his career numbers, he has already surpassed 9,000 yards. He shared time like 50-50 his sophomore year, and then probably 30-70 his freshman year. So he's thrown 9,000 yards, splitting duties his first 2 seasons, and then basically leading an offense that has always had a great running attack, and he's only playing like the first half in a lot of these games. And they don't try to run up the clock, but that's just how high-powered their offense has been. You're a team that's not trying to run up the clock, and you're winning games by 40 points per game this season. So his numbers could be even better if they really wanted to put the ball in his hands 40 times a game, but that is not their intentions. They want to stay balanced, and they run, I think, one of the most creative, sophisticated, and well-prepared offenses I've ever seen at the high school level. They come out with tempo. Mention if they get a positive play on first down and get a fresh set of downs, if they like the matchup the defense is giving them, or if they saw something on the last play, they'll hit it right back and just keep things going. They just drive the ball consistently down the field. They don't have negative plays. And then the big X factor is the offensive line with Daniel Calhoun, giving them just a true force at the tackle position. All right, so Walton is typically more of a passing team, as Hecklinski has thrown for a 7A leading 3,029 yards this season. But the Raiders produced 2 100 rushers in their latest win. That's Makari Bodiford and Austin Williams. Bodiford had 2 touchdowns. Williams had 1. And then I know in that game, North Gwinnett, they did pass for 332 yards, but they really didn't even try to run the football against that Walton defense. So it was a great win. They were tested early in that second quarter, but ended up pulling away. I think Hecklinski only has 1 interception this season, which is pretty crazy. And that one, did that come in the Grayson game, I think?
I think it did.
And I think that was one where he wanted, I remember it, he wanted a roughing the passer call on it, and he kind of thought it was a busted play and ended up throwing the pick. And he thought it should have been negated. So that's interesting. He has not thrown an interception. Man, he is You can't ask for a better quarterback matchup. You can't ask for a better quarterfinal showdown. I think you got another great one to watch on the other side with Buford and Grayson. I think that's a toss-up game. Buford's only a 3-point favorite, and the way J.D. Davis looked last week and with his weapons, I think Grayson has a similar ability to mismatch its receiving cores as Carrollton. They've got big guys that can just get open and make plays. I mean, Kylan Fox is an absolute monster. Buford's going to have his hands full. I think that's going to be an outstanding matchup. Can't really lose with these 7A showdowns, but we're excited. We'll be live from Carrollton, and we'll be back for more tomorrow. Check us out at noon. We'll be live with Underrated and Overlooked, and we got more content going up at scoreatl.com today and the rest of this week leading up to it. So thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back.
What you doing?
Hey, just finishing this claim to get Dave back on the road.
Nice. I wonder what Dave's doing.
You do your thing. We've got you covered.
Dang, where you get this car?
You need to join the union.
The union?
Absolutely. You can get 10 of these.
Union construction workers earn the highest wages with the best benefits and the most protection in the construction industry. Find your career in construction. Go to GeorgiaConstructionCareers.com and start your future today.